Hello, everyone. This is Bob Lowe, CSIA Executive Director. Thank you for attending the January CSIA webinar. Today's webinar will provide you with an understanding of identifying and training SMEs in your company. The host and sponsor of our monthly webinars is Software Toolbox, a CSIA partner member. Software Toolbox helps SIs lower their risk on the projects that involve software by providing them a unique mix of off-the-shelf software products and rapid response technical support that minimizes the need for custom code and lowers field startup time risk. I would like to introduce today's webinar presenter, Jem Skinner. Jem is the learning lead for Polytron's Technology Transfer and Training Group. During her 20-plus years of experience in manufacturing, applying adult learning methodologies and training management, she has seen the training industry expand from traditional classroom training to hands-on and blended learning events. During her tenure, Jem has worked with the Polytron team of instructional designers, technical writers, and training facilitators to create successful strategies and services for clients to identify true training needs, develop focused training plans and appropriate training media, develop blended learning events that incorporate classroom, simulation, and emulation, and hands-on training, and implement those plans in concert with an engineering project team or as a standalone service. Jem is a management graduate of Southwestern University and a published author and presenter of industry-related topics. So, without further delay, here's Jem.
Thank you, Bob. I really appreciate that introduction. It sounds like I have been around a lot longer than I remember being around. I think that's typical of us in our industry. So good morning to our individuals who have joined us today. We really do appreciate that. As a charter member of the Polytron training team, the thing that I'd like to focus on today is to really discuss the best methods of turning our SMEs into successful trainers. Your best experts are on the factory floor, but the question for some of us is, are they our best instructors? They can be if we train them on how to effectively transfer that knowledge, and that key is tailoring your instructor learning to leverage their strengths and minimize their challenges. So to discover what it takes to pick the best SME trainer and learn the foundational training competencies and why those are the most important to the success of your system integration is really our focus for the next 30 to 45 minutes. Let's get started by really discussing a very brief overview of who Polytron is and why training is important to us as systems integrators. From then, we'll move on to discussing how we can select and prepare the SME to effectively train others. And there will be time for questions and answers toward the end of our discussion, but if you do have a question as we go through our presentation, please do not hesitate to ask that question in the Q&A area and send that to the panelist. From there, that question would be funneled to me. First of all, who is Polytron? Well, we have almost 30 years experience in the manufacturing industry. We are considered trusted experts in the manufacturing, automation, information systems, and technology transfer and training. Our founder is still involved with us, and our core leadership team is really involved not only in the day-to-day operations, but in our engineering projects as well. We have experienced professionals on staff, and these do include our highly trained engineers, professional engineers, certified project managers, IT systems engineers, certified trainers, and also employee development and training consultants. We have a full suite of solutions for increasing efficiency for our clients, and this includes power and energy, the right amount at the right time, automation, which is maximizing our efficiencies, manufacturing intelligence, connecting the business ERP to the plant floor and measuring the results, and of course the thing that I really find true to my heart, which is the technology transfer and training, which is truly turning information into productivity, making certain that we transfer the knowledge and manage change in the culture to help ensure the continuity of performance. We also use proven processes to quickly and effectively solve problems within a plant. And really what this includes is analyzing the situation, defining the problems, aligning the goal with the performance-based objectives at the plant level, designing and building the solution with the appropriate mix of power, automation, MI, and training those affected personnel, and reviewing the performance-based results as needed. So why do we train? Why does Polytron train, and as systems integrators, why is training important to you? It's really critical to systems integration. But the way that I think about this is threefold. First of all, we have to talk about having an innovative and skilled workforce. Marketplace trends are showing us that workforce shortages, specifically in manufacturing industries, are going to be increasing over the next 3 to 5 years. In addition, increasingly automated systems are actually demanding more of the skilled workers. The changing nature of this work can make it difficult for workers to keep up with the employee demands. And in addition to that, we have a generation who is considering retirement and a generation who's coming on board who may not have the same technical knowledge as those who are leaving. And this makes career development programs critical to improving the knowledge of the current workforce in order for the companies to grow and remain competitive in the future. So that's one of the reasons that training is critical to systems integration. Another, which we've all heard, is our customer requirements. A knowledgeable and skilled workforce is critical to maintaining and increasing production levels consistent with the customer demands while maintaining the quality levels to meet the customer requirements. So this is a critical key to achieving productivity targets, and as systems integrators, something that we're all called upon very often to work with our customers and make certain that we do meet those requirements. To me, it falls into credibility and confidence in the equipment, the process operations, and the safe operations. The knowledge level of the plant equipment and process operations staff has a direct impact on the level of confidence and safety of the plant's workforce. So when we think about these three things, innovation and skilled workforce, customer requirements, and credibility and confidence, what does this mean to us? It means that we need the best trainers possible in place and ready to transfer training and knowledge really upon demand. So now that we understand why we need to train, let's consider who our clients think make the best trainers and how that impacts us. In 2011, Polytron Whiteboard This did a survey of our customers. Not surprisingly, 13% of our clients thought their own operators, mechanics, or control staff make good trainers for initial training. That's a pretty low number. For second-generation training, 23 look to their internal training department, and 27 look to the external training department. But a large majority, 37%, look to vendor representatives, equipment, systems integrators, to provide the highest quality for not only the initial, but the follow-up training. So what this does is this places the burden of information and knowledge transfer directly on the shoulders of those responsible for the installation and the integration. So with this responsibility in our hands, how do we go about determining who our trainers should be and ensuring what they have and what they have that it takes to get the message across that we need for them to get across? I mentioned earlier that your team on the factory floor every day knows your systems inside and out. they have the expert knowledge others need. In our industry, we typically find 3 different types of trainers: team leads, natural trainers, and subject matter experts. So the first thing that we want to do is think through who these individuals are. Team leaders are those who are in charge of groups or areas. They usually have great people skills and they are highly motivated individuals. But they often emphasize quick solutions or the most recent procedural changes when they go about transferring knowledge. This means that they may not be your best instructors because this type of transfer can result in a random application of information. What are the hot topics? Not necessarily what do I need to run safely and effectively. Then you have your natural trainers, and these are your go-to people. You know who they are. If there's a question, they can usually find the answer. They are consistently exploring new methods and techniques, and they love to share their ideas. Inside a plant, when they work for our clients, they typically have the time to research, and they will make very good trainers. But for systems integrators, although they may love to train, their limited knowledge can be a deal breaker for us. The answer for the natural trainers is fairly simple. Give them the time they need to learn the knowledge, and they can be effective trainers. However, we don't always have that time to provide for them, project after project after project. So the third type of trainer that we want to talk about is the subject matter expert. Our subject matter experts have the knowledge and the expertise that others need. They typically have a good understanding of the technology, they know the equipment, they know the processes, and they should be your best candidate. So why not just partner the SME with a new employee, and presto, we have 2 SMEs, correct? I really wish it did work that way, but in fact, this formula fails more often than it succeeds, and a lot of times we're left wondering why. And it is typically because SME knowledge transfer is often full of details and given solely in a hands-on environment. This can result in a very sporadic retention of the information by the learners and then a haphazard use of that information. So with that thought in mind, team leads, natural trainers, and subject matter experts, we'd like to do a little poll before we move forward. What type of trainers do you have in your company? If you could select the choice that you feel you have the most and answer that in the polling window, we'll pause for a moment and come back and give the results.
Okay, we'll have the poll window open for about another minute and a half here, and then I'll share the results.
All right, thank you very much.
Looks like we've got about half, looks like we've got about 8 responses so far. So if anybody else would like to respond, the poll will be open for about another minute here.
As we're waiting for those responses, when we move forward in our discussions, we will be talking about how we can work with the different competencies that we have in place to make these trainers more effectively and what to look for to give these individuals direction as we move forward.
Okay, looks like it's right now with 10 respondents. We have 5 that say they have subject matter experts, 3 natural trainers, and 4 team leaders. So it's almost an even third around. Looks like we have one more response that's coming in here. Let's see where it lands.
There are 12 attendees, so when it adds up to 12, I'd say we're done.
That's right. Sometimes we get all and sometimes we don't. It's actually closing in 3, 2, 1. It's an automatic close. I opened it for 2 minutes. It's going to wait another 17, 15, 16, 15 seconds. Looks like someone did start. If they want to go ahead and finish their answer and submit it, that'd be great. And then we'll have the final results. 3, 2, 1, and we're done. Okay, so we'll show the poll results. So we have 5 that said team leaders, 3 that said natural trainers, and 5 that said subject matter experts, Jan.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. So we're really split fairly evenly, but with an emphasis on the team leads and the subject matter experts. And we do understand that team leads, while they're enthusiastic, that may be a little sporadic in their information. Subject matter experts, while they have the knowledge, sometimes they can have a difficulty in giving the information for a retention of use. So let's move forward and talk about how we can identify those best subject matter expert trainer candidates, making certain that they have what it takes. As we consider this, the 2 things that we need to think about is, why do subject matter experts find training difficult? And what do you want to avoid when looking for an SME trainer? The first thing we want to avoid is that individual who is overly detailed. Their knowledge transfer is often full of detail, and their preference is a hands-on environment. You want to avoid an individual who might be a loner or be frustrated. A lot of SMEs do not naturally like to interact with others. They do prefer the tools, the technologies, the equipment. We want to consider the organization skills. If they're disorganized, they may not see a need for formal training, and then their information download would also be disorganized because of this. In addition, we want to think about a fear of public speaking. It's a little strange to consider, but many subject matter experts do not like to speak in public, and as a result, their training is a bit more sporadic in the retention of the information. Aside from fear of falling, the #1 fear for adults is public speaking. And when we combine that with individuals who do like to work with tools and technologies versus individuals, that does show us why this might come into place. So what are the things that you do look for? Well, the first thing, obviously, is going to be the knowledge. You want to make certain that your subject matter experts know the facts, they have the answers, they have ideas, and it's important that they have safe work practices. Next is interaction. You are looking for someone who steps forward to assist, not someone that wants to hold their information in. Another is patience, a willingness to explain, a respectfulness shown to peers and management and workers. And this is probably one of the most important things for you to consider, because your subject matter expert is going to have to interact with all 3 of those. Specifically with their peers. They may train someone who is also at their level, but they're also going to have to work with management who may place demands upon what they're going to train and how they're going to and what time they have to do so. In addition, and really important, is that interaction with the workers. It can be frustrating to work with someone and to try to transfer knowledge when their level of information is not as high or as detailed as your own. You're also looking for follow-through, good organization skills, and ensuring that tasks are complete. Presentation skills are important as well. The ability to be professional, have a good technical language, and very good interpersonal skills. If you think about it, these things that you are looking for are the things that you would typically find and a natural trainer. So when you see them in a subject matter expert, the chances are you have the start of a formula for success. And this is going to help you narrow the trainer candidate field. And once it is narrowed, then it's time to go about selecting the best candidate. And you know, in our industry, there seems to be a process for everything we do. Well, indeed, there is a process for selecting our best SME candidate. There is 4 basic steps. The first to consider is definition. Defining what is required of a trainer in your organization. It may not have to be a full-time job, but it is certainly going to be part of their overall position. So develop a job description that paints a clear picture for both you and your trainer candidate of both the goal and the expectations for the trainer portion of their position. So define the role, develop the job description. Next is observation, and this is equally important. You want to use your own daily observation and the knowledge of your workforce. Effective instructors or trainers enjoy working with others. They are naturally curious, and they take pleasure in discovering how things work and passing this information on to others. So some of the questions that you want to consider are, who do others on your team turn to when they have a question? Who steps forward to assist when others are having a problem versus who steps away? Which SMEs ask questions about equipment or processes when a service tech or another trainer is there with them? Who seems to always have ideas and, really importantly, can pull past documents for reference? That's going to begin to narrow your field. And once you have your field narrowed, the next step is to go and do an interview with these individuals. And it can be an informal interview, but you want to talk about the role. Individuals who have natural coaching talent usually know they can teach, and those around them know who they are. So you want to make certain that you interview not only those subject matter experts that you are considering for training, but perhaps some of the people they work with as well. Some of the things to consider during the interview, or some of the questions to ask, might include, who do you turn to when you have a question? Did you enjoy reading and studying in school? Well, that's a question you want to find out the answer to, because there may be a lot of reading and studying behind the scenes when you become a trainer. You want to find out, do you enjoy attending training? If they do, find out why. Find out what it is that they find the most interesting, and if they don't, ask why as well. That will give you insight into finding out how they might best provide their own training. You could ask if they have ever trained or conducted or coached before, and if they've ever written or developed job aids. I think one of the best questions to ask is, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your interest level in passing knowledge on to others? So the answers that you receive are important because they give you insight into how the SME is thinking, and if that SME might be the best person in your team. The final step would be an audition, and we consider this an optional step, but I believe this is the step that will give you the most confidence in who will be your best trainer. So it's to weed out those who really do not have a true interest or are natural talent, is to provide them with the opportunity to test their own abilities. We recommend selecting a simple piece of equipment or a process, asking each individual to study the safety needs of that equipment or process, maybe even provide them with written documentation, and allow a short study time, maybe anywhere between 15 minutes to an hour, based upon the complexity of that equipment. Ask the SME to give a 5-minute one-on-one presentation on the safety aspects or the process, and then evaluate for yourself that presentation based on the natural abilities and the skills that we're going to begin to talk about here very, very shortly. If you use these steps, it's going to begin to narrow your field down to those individuals that you want to take through a process to make them a good trainer. So the next thing you want to consider as you move into this is, what are the competencies these individuals need for success? There are 14 basic skills or competencies that are needed for training success. And these come from CompTIA, the International Board of Standards for Trainers and Developers, and also the Association of Trainers and Developers. And these have been pulled into 3 areas. The first area is pre-training preparation. And what we want to do here is have the skill to analyze materials and learner information, and also to assure that we have site preparation. So when we think about this, we want to think through, do we have the materials that we need, and who are our trainers? How do we assure that the site will be prepared? The next area is the training process itself, establishing and maintaining credibility. Well, as we all know, it's very easy to establish that credibility, but it can very quickly be lost. There's a skill to doing that. Managing the environment itself. A lot of people think that's dealing with difficult students, but it's more than that. Being able to communicate, present, and question very effectively. Also responding to a learner's need for clarification and feedback as part of the training process, providing that positive feedback, reinforcement, motivation, using instructional methods, and using media effectively. Each of these skills will lead to the success of any learning event. Finally, we have post-training confirmation. This deals with evaluating the learner performance, evaluating the delivery of that particular class or learning event, and reporting the evaluation information. All too often, we fail to find out what our students know at the end of training. We don't think about evaluating our own performance and what we've been able to do or not do, and we don't think about reporting those results back to our client when that final reporting of results could really gain a lot of credibility with our client. So I'd like to pause for a moment on this slide and have another poll. Of these 3 areas, which do you think is the most important? So again, which area do you think is the more important for the subject matter expert trainer?
All right, our poll is open. I'll have it open for 2 minutes, and off we go.
As people take a few moments to poll, let me tell you that the next thing we will move into is discussing which of these competencies are competencies that everyone needs, regardless of the type of trainer they are. And then we're also going to focus a little bit more in on those competencies that make our subject matter experts the most successful and why those are important to them.
Looks like we just have one more person to finish, and then I'll be able to go ahead and close the poll early and hopefully share the results.
That's great, John. Thank you. I certainly do appreciate everyone participating in the polls. That helps us determine how we can target some of this information specifically to you.
For the one person who has started, you do have to click, I think it's a submit. There's a button you have to, after you make your choice, you have to submit your answer. Okay. All right, poll is now closing. We have, all righty, tally here, and I will share out the results.
Thank you.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's share out. Okay, looks like we have a little more of a clearer choice on the team here. It seems that looks like we have 3 who say the pre-training preparation, 6 chose the training process, and 2 chose the post-training confirmation. So there
That's
you have
fantastic. And honestly, that's what we usually hear as well. It's not that this is a trick poll. All of the areas are important. But a lot of us do focus on what happens in the training event itself. And this is a clear indication that we are focusing on the activity of the moment and not thinking about what it takes to get ready or to follow up. And when you have identified subject matter experts as being your trainers, overwhelmingly they focus more on the moment than do your natural trainers. So that is a perfect lead-in. Thank you very much for those responses, so that we can talk about the fact that regardless of the trainer type or the training style you may hear it referred to, there are 4 cornerstones that give us our best direction in training. These are your fundamental competencies that every trainer must have. First, communication and presentation, because that gives your trainer the ability to get the message out there. If the message is not out there, the learner cannot grab it. The ability to question gives your trainer the capability to confirm that the message is understood. Just because we've heard it and seen it, it doesn't necessarily mean we have understood it. And finally, the ability to motivate gives the trainer the capability to engage the trainee to test their skills. And in our industry, that is one of the most important things that we can do, is engage the learner. Every trainer does need these: communication, presentation, questioning, and motivation. But we remember that we said the SME knowledge transfer is the one that is often full of detail and given solely in a hands-on environment, and that this can result in sporadic retention of the information and a haphazard use of the information. So to be successful, they need to have more than a fundamental cornerstone competencies. Really what they need is a formula for subject matter expert success and training. But you know, I can't give you that just yet, because before you can understand the formula for SME training success, you first need to understand, how do we learn? Specifically, how do we learn in the packaging and manufacturing industry, and how does that differ from the rest of the world? So experts in the adult learning field typically agree on the same 3 basic learning styles. There is a visual, which is a need to see the material. There is an auditory, which is a need to hear it. And there is what we refer to as a kinesthetic, which is a need to place our hands in motion. You may have heard this as being a hands-on learner or a psychomotor learner, but they've updated this to be kinesthetic. That's okay. You know, really as adults, no one is solely a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learner. We have preferences, but we use all three when we receive and process new information. But the differences in these learning styles can be a challenge for the SME trainer, and for a very good reason. First of all, there is a difference between how most of us, the technical folks, learn compared to the rest of the world, meaning the non-technical folks. And second, SMEs are predominantly one type of learner. So let's take a look at these numbers. You have a pie chart in front of you that talks about the packaging and manufacturing industry, but I want to compare this to what happens in the total population. Let's start with visual. In visual, the total population is 65% visual learners, versus in the packaging and manufacturing industry, we are only 33% visual learners. Auditory is fairly even. In the total population, we have 20% auditory versus 21% who are visual. But kinesthetic is where we really see a major jump in the differences. In the total population, only 13% of the total population are kinesthetic or hands-on learners. For those of us in the technical field, we're 46%. That's a huge difference. And when you compare that with the fact that subject matter experts are overwhelmingly kinesthetic learners, then you can begin to see a gap. If you think back to your own schooling, high school, if you were one of the individuals who had a little difficulty in school, maybe like me, spent a little bit more time in the principal's office than you needed to, it could be because you are a kinesthetic learner, and most of our teachers in high school and in college are visual and auditory learners. Therefore, the majority of what they provide are visual and auditory information. So when we compare this to our SMEs also being kinesthetic learners, we need to think about who they are teaching. Operators, although they believe that they are kinesthetic or hands-on learners, are overwhelmingly visual with secondary kinesthetic. How do we know this? Observe your operators on the floor. Typically, they like to watch others several times in doing a particular process or procedure before they feel comfortable or secure enough to try it themselves. When you move into the mechanics, mechanics are typically a little bit more kinesthetic or hands-on in nature with a secondary visual. They love the technical journals and they love the graphics and the blowouts in those technical journals, but they also like getting their hands into motion. So I want you to keep these things in mind, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, if you would, as we move forward into talking about what those learning styles for that subject matter expert are, kinesthetic with a low visual, and the competencies that we consider for success. So first of all, the additional competency for the subject matter expert is analyzing the materials and learner information. Now wait a minute, this falls into the pre-training, doesn't it? And we said we felt that the training process was the most important. Well, that's true, and your subject matter expert will jump feet first into the training process, sometimes without taking the time to analyze, well, who's my student and how do they learn best? So it's evaluating their audience and determine that the right material is available for their learning style as well. Next is managing the learning environment, and yes, that is part of the training process itself. But more than that, it's ensuring that the right information is present at the right time, the right pace, and the right depth for the group that they have. So for the subject matter expert, this is a challenge when they're working with operators or when they're working with team leads, and not so much of a challenge when they're working with other mechanics or even with controls or engineers. Putting those two competencies together lets them know that perhaps they need to pre-assess, find out what their group knows, and find out how their group learns best by asking a few simple questions. Once they've done that, another competency that subject matter experts need is the ability to give the right feedback. That sounds a little funny to us because we say, oh, that's great, you tell somebody they did something right. But it's targeting the feedback to the temperament of the learner. It's okay to tell operators they did a great job. It's okay to give them a thumbs up. Sometimes your learners may be a little bit more technical, and their feedback may need to be a bit more targeted to what they have done incorrectly. Some groups, if you tell them what they did incorrectly, they will not go past that and they will not operate the equipment effectively. So it's knowing when to motivate and how to motivate for that particular group. It's also knowing the best instructional methods. Believe it or not, there's about 50 of them out there. So which ones are the best ones for the subject matter experts? The value of knowing those best instructional methods for the subject matter expert is being able to move smoothly from one topic to another. This allows them not to become bogged down in those details that they find to be the most interesting, but to give those details in a flow that will allow their students to be able to work through the information appropriately. And finally, it's evaluating the learner performance. Now, wait a minute, that's in that post-training, isn't it? But it's true. We need to assure opportunities for course correction and success. Being able to give our individuals time to try, give the feedback, and do a post-assessment and evaluation and give that information to our clients. So that's a lot to think about. And as we think about that, we want to consider, how do we support our new trainer? We have identified who that trainer might be. We have the process for it. We know the competencies that everyone needs out of all of them that are out there. And then of all of those 14 core competencies, we know the ones that fit our subject matter expert trainer. So we can support them by, first of all, finding the time to training. Put performance in their hands with their defined role. Be certain that you have a train-the-trainer program or time to allow them to close those skills gap for higher productivity, and that that's tailored to their teaching style. It's important to give the recognition. You do need to set a little bit of priority and to also give a little bit of prep time. But really the most important thing is finding the right course for your trainer type. So I'd like to talk for just a few moments about what a train-the-trainer should look like. What are some of the typical roles and activities? You want to make certain that when you look at train-the-trainer courses, it includes an introduction to the role of trainer so that your trainer can gain an understanding of their expectations. You want to be sure it includes how to prepare for training. That wasn't the top on our list, so that lets us know we need to find out the value and the importance of verifying the content, the flow, the logistics, and the audience needs. We need activities and topics that guide us to conducting training and managing the student expectations so that we really can grasp those four cornerstones of communication, presentation, questioning, and motivation requirements. We need to confirm the student abilities. This falls under engaging students to test their abilities and providing the feedback, which can be a portion of the training itself, but it can also fall under the post-course evaluation. Some of those learning activities that I would like you to be sure that you look for deal with developing content. Yes, content exists. You have your technical manuals, but how about an agenda, some job aids? Presentation. What do we need to walk through what we're going to teach and to also gain the student interaction and motivation and questioning? So here we're really talking about best practices. A best practice for instructor training or train-the-trainers is adapting and focusing specific training skills to those skills that your SMEs have, enhancing those to have the effectiveness and improving the overall success of the training and the systems integration based upon what your specific trainers need, train the trainer or instructor certification. The benefits, finally, that I wanted to talk about is certification. We know how to identify, we know what our trainers need, we know how to look for and what to look for to provide them what they need, but finally, we want to certify them. This is going to help your instructor candidate understand the importance of a learning model, which is what it takes to train, the instructional competencies they need to practice based on their learning and training style, and how the two of these work together to provide a very solid learning environment. Our model is prepare, transfer, and confirm. Other models exist. What we need to do is find the best one for your trainers. So today we've talked about how to determine who our subject matter experts are out of the three types of trainers that exist. We've discovered the 14 core competencies or skills, those that are the cornerstones to effective training, and those that hone in on our subject matter experts. For those of you that did mention you have natural trainers and that you also have team leads, there are core competencies that meet those as well. But in the last few minutes that we have available, I would like to open this up to questions that we can answer or information that we can share. If you have a question, please do not hesitate to share that under the Q&A section.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Right now there aren't any questions queued up, but typically in these we'll give people a couple minutes and some will come forth. While we wait on that, I will let everybody know we will be sending an email out at about 12:30 Eastern Time that will include a link to where the CSIA is posting this presentation on their website. That same email is going to include a survey that Bob will be reminding you about this again, but I'll go ahead and say it. Please do fill out the survey as part of the CSIA continuous improvement process. That feedback is valuable to us and to our presenters, so we can continue to make sure these events are of value to you as CSIA members.
And while we are waiting on a couple of those questions to come through, because our poll did indicate that some individuals do have natural trainers and some have team leads, I'll go ahead and identify for you for the team leads, assuring the preparation of the site and establishing credibility, using the instructional methods, and reporting the information are the additional competencies that will help them. For your natural trainers, it really becomes the instructional methods, use of effective media, and evaluating their own delivery for improvement. We'll pause for a moment while we see if there are any additional questions that do come. One of the questions that has come through is if SMEs are overly detailed and have a fear of public speaking, does this mean that we cannot make them successful or good trainers? Absolutely not. It means, first of all, for the overly detailed, that we need to harness those details. And we can harness those details through analyzing the materials and what the learners need. The fear of public speaking is a fear that a lot of individuals have. We can help the subject matter experts overcome this through placing them inside of a train-the-trainer or instructor certification class. This will give them the chance to practice in a secure environment and then start with smaller groups of individuals and present to them. In reality, if we can get our subject matter experts to buy into the core skills that they need, they can become your very best trainers, and they can partner with a natural trainer to make certain that they have the skill sets that they take and the confidence.
We do have one question that's been posed. It says you mentioned that there are 50 different instructional methods. Do you have a reference we can contact for more information?
Absolutely. There are a number of references there. We do have a white paper that you can log on to our website and download some of that information. And in addition to that, you can go to Chief Learning Officer, who has instructional methods set for them, and you can also look at the Association of Trainers and Developers, who have some additional information on the instructional methods. To give you an example, when we talk about instructional methods, some of the ones we consider to be the most important is introduction, transitions. Questioning skills is actually an instructional method, as well as using media effectively and making certain that you have confirmation opportunities in place. Again, there are many more of those, but those are the some that we have found to be the most important in our industries. In addition, for those of you that have signed up, provided us with your email address, we will send a white paper to all of you so that you have the opportunity to read through and review this information. That was a great question that came in from Mr. Allen. Thank you.
Jim, I have a question for you. This is Bob. I can speak rather than write. Many of our members are smaller companies and perhaps don't engage in substantial amount of training other than perhaps training that needs to be done at the conclusion of a project. And most commonly, the project lead is the one who almost has to be the one who does it because it's very specific to that particular project. Is there any different approach should be taken when you're almost kind of forced to use that particular person? Or maybe have a choice of only two people. What is the best approach? So it's just basically follow the same guidelines you provided here because, you're likely, stuck with a team lead or a natural trainer and not so much, and maybe an SME, but in other words, you don't have a lot of choices. What's the best approach?
Absolutely. That's really a good question because it speaks to the heart of just-in-time training. We can schedule training, and that works really well, but when we have a natural trainer who is called upon or a team lead, there are different skill sets that they call upon. A natural trainer will automatically take a look at what materials that they have. It's part of their core skill set. They'll naturally look to who their students are, and typically they're good at asking questions. What they don't usually do is take the time to find a subject matter expert who can answer some of the technical questions for them. So if you are using a natural trainer and they're the ones who must provide the information, we recommend pairing them with a very brief time with a subject matter expert. Your natural trainer can facilitate, find out what's needed, get the basic answers to the questions, and then turn around and provide that information very, very quickly. If you're using a group lead, there's really one key thing that helps more than anything, and that's the use of a training checklist. And by that, I mean identify those things that must be covered. If you don't, then your team lead is going to focus on the last emergency that pulled them away from what they should be doing, and that's what they're going to talk about. So be sure that you have an informal agenda, some type of a training checklist that can be used, and some type of 3 to 4 questions that the team lead should automatically ask at the end. Does that help provide the answer to the question that you asked, Bob?
Yes, it does.
Perfect. Preparation, I think, is the last thing that I wanted to mention, because if you are using team leads, if you are using natural trainers, or if you are using subject matter experts, when you have those moments of downtime, knowing that there are courses out there that may take anywhere from 2 to 3 days that you can place these individuals in, to give them a process to follow, that's the most important thing that you can do, not only to prepare them, but to support them. When they have that process in place, then it becomes easier for either one or any one of those 3 training styles to step forward and provide the information that is needed with confidence.
All righty. Well, I'm not seeing any new questions posed, so if it's all right with Jim, I'd like to go ahead and turn things back over to Bob to do the closing.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Well, to all of the attendees, thank you for staying with us, and thank you for your participation. My hope is that you have several takeaways that enable you to identify and get the most out of your subject matter experts. Jim, thank you for your contribution of time and expertise. Your presentation was very insightful. It's a very unique comparison to many of the other webinars that we have, and we wish the best for you, and we'll hopefully see you at the CSIA conference or others from Polytron. And thanks again to our host and sponsor, Software Toolbox, and John Weber. Be sure to complete that survey that John mentioned. It'll be coming to you very shortly, and yes, it only takes 30 seconds to complete, and it is important to us to get that feedback. So in closing, here's a quick bullet list for you to consider. Attend the Polytron-sponsored event called Manufacturing Execution Systems, Manufacturing Operations Management, and they will host this near Atlanta, Georgia, February 16 to 17, and you can see our past newsletter for details on that. And additionally, if you're interested in Polytron, in the Polytron Instructors Program, you can go to the Polytron website. Register for the CSIA Executive Conference, and you go to our website, controlsys.org. It's April 25th to 28th. It's in Scottsdale, Arizona. It'll be a great program, and it's a great location, and I encourage all of our members to attend. Finally, if you have a suggested topic for a webinar in the future, include it in your survey comments. We're always looking for ideas and wanting to know what would interest our members. So this is Bob Lowe, Executive Director. Thanks again for attending, and goodbye.